This is The Last of Us Part 1, and or basically The Last of Us remake of that original game. So be sure to like the video, subscribing is great as well. We're here on the RTX 4090 with the i9-13900K combo, and you can see the frame rate, the CPU frame rate, and the GPU frame rate in the top left. We're going to be diving into the visuals, the tech elements, and generally this experience. So you might have noticed, if you were listening closely, that the beginning cinematic is out of voice sync because, well, sometimes the cutscenes in this are out of audio sync, which is really, really weird and quite perplexing. And yeah, it's just kind of one of a host of kind of problems with this particular port of the game. So let's dive in and let's sort of open with this scene here where it actually seems to be heavy on the 4090, which is really weird. So you're going to be seeing, and you'll see it when it pops up all the technical specs. But yeah, we're kind of using a combination of the DLSS, the AMDs for Fidelity, and also their kind of internal sort of scaling thing as well, which is rather interesting. So this is ultra settings, and again, reflective of what we're getting here. So a lot of the time, you're kind of getting up to 120 FPS, although in this opening segment, it's really weirdly heavy. Like, literally drops to like 40 FPS, which is very, very strange. And it's just like oddly demanding. I guess it's because maybe the explosions, the lots of NPCs running around, but it is a bit weird. But a lot of the game does actually get up to 120. So it's kind of like this really large range of like 80 to 120 FPS most of the time, with the super resolution DLSS going on with either quality or kind of I went for balanced a lot of the time, but you're going to see differing options here. And then there's the field of view option, which you can change as well, and you'll notice that that hurts the performance a bit further as well when you're showing it off here. So we will do an actual talk of the story elements a little bit later on, but I am focused on the technical elements. So let's dive into the graphics, and this one is very VRAM hungry. So we've got various presets. We've got the geometry settings for like draw distance, the level of detail. We've got texture settings for the quality of the differing textures, characters, environments, visuals, like just a huge host of options, which is great. There's shadow quality, the way the shadows work. There's no ray tracing, which is quite disappointing, honestly. Very, very disappointing, since all the other kind of PlayStation ports have had it to some degree, so that is disappointing. There's reflection settings too that you're going to see in a sec here. Screen space reflections, real-time reflections, cloud reflections. So very, very complex, and this is a very visually impressive game if you haven't seen it before. Shading settings, post effects, depth of field, visual effects settings are the next option after this one. So just quick extra little things, volumetric effects, and lens flare. So this will have you pre-compile shaders before, well, it recommends before you start playing, and that can actually take quite a long time, and it still didn't really seem to remove stutters that I had while I was playing. So that might be something that shows up for you as well. It wasn't like constant, but there still were moments of when it was stuttering as I was playing. It would be every so often, which I thought was a bit odd, because I'd be getting upwards of like 100 and not in this scene, but in other scenes I'd be getting like up to 100 FPS, and it would there'd be a stutter, and it's a bit odd. And that's the thing, is like port wise, I think there is a bit of a reason why I wasn't given like early access to this one, and I think it's because it's not necessarily a perfect port of this experience, and I do think they need more work on it, because, well, frankly, it's like their crown jewel. Oh, there's a photo mode too. Like with the the great praise of the show, the love of when this released on the PS5, which is a very, very good running, technically impressive version of the game. I did a live stream of the whole thing, which was a lot of fun. If you want to see, more of what this game sort of looks like, I would suggest that. But like, you got all of this momentum going, and it's like finally available on PC, and it's disappointing. really, I would say. Like, it's not... Like, it wasn't terrible for of an experience for me. Like, you know, I was able to play it. I was able to get, you know, decent performance. I mean, I feel like the 4090 combo here should be, you know, kind of smoothly doing 4K 120 in basically, like, you know, most games. But whatever. Let's just say it's a super demanding game, whatever the case. And it's like, I don't know, that this is their, like I said, kind of a crown jewel, technical, visual, impressive game. And there's all these, like, kind of like little issues and stuff, and I don't know. But when it is, you know, smooth, it is running well, it looks great. You know, like, it really does. Like, it looks fantastic. Just like the, you know, the textures, the sharpness, the visuals of the environment. Very, very well done. And in general, a very, very good game if you have not played The Last of Us, but we're not diving into the story type review yet, as I'm still wanting to showcase some things and give you an idea of, you know, the overall experience and everything like that. We're gonna let a little bit of a bite go on here in a sec, which is kind of funny. It also, like, little polishing things too. Like, when I was using the Xbox controller, sometimes it would show, instead of like Xbox buttons, it would be like keyboard buttons, and it kept kind of switching, and I thought that was really weird, because normally, again, you can plug in the Xbox controller and all these PlayStation games handle it beautifully. And this is the first time where I'm kind of like, I thought we'd show it off on low settings, it'd be a little bit funny, but yeah, and this was like the first time where I'm kind of like, why isn't this fully working? I was like, what is going on? You know, it's like press E, and I'm like, well, at least I know what the, you know, the transfer button is, having played on the PS5, but I'm like, you know, if you're actually wanting to play this with your Xbox controller the whole way through, it's, you know, it's weird that that is the case. And then again, like the desynced kind of voices being off, it's like that really impacts the experience. I was like, what is going on? I'm like, you know, people are going to think my recording is like off for audio, but it's not. It's like some of the cinematics are just not correctly, you know, lip synced, which is weird. I don't remember that being a thing on the PS5 side of things. Just kind of drove me crazy. But you should see the performance kind of like tick up quite a bit here as we sort of play around with it. This is the AMD FSR2. We're just kind of see, you know, again, you get the frame rate getting up towards 120, which is nice. You know, that, I mean, that's what you want. And there are other things that you can check, like your heat levels. You can check, you know, for your CPU, how much you're using. You check your VRAM usage, which, again, this is a VRAM hungry game. VRAM hungry experience, that is for sure. But the whole point of this initial area here is to kind of give you an idea of like some of the visual options and some of the settings and some of the technical stuff if you're diving in here with this particular build. There's also like ultra wide stuff you can do. You know, it's got kind of all the settings you would expect, just, you know, minus, you know, kind of the smoothed out quality and the well, general polish that you would imagine out of like the top tier, again, kind of crown jewel showcase of like PlayStation. Like this is a big series that's become a mega hit. So it is a bit odd that they didn't knock it out of the park, you know. And I like, again, I kind of had a really bad feeling when I knew that I wasn't getting it ahead of, you know, release to prepare everything for this, because I usually always get the PlayStation games generously ahead of launch to create and compile content for. So I was kind of like, that is not a good sign. But, you know, it's still, for me, it was still running, you know, relatively fine. It's still an incredible experience. It's still very, very well done. And, you know, it is quite excellent. And I'm sure they're going to fix things over time. But I just wanted to give you an idea of it at launch. Again, with ray tracing being, you know, kind of not present as a bit of a disappointment, the audio desync being a bit of a problem, the occasional stutter being a bit of a problem, sort of just these things that kind of like come together, and you're sort of like, well, why? You know, why wasn't the extra time taken to actually make sure that this is running, you know, properly? To make sure that this is the optimal kind of experience. And, you know, it's really, really quite weird that that was the case. But you see, you get to these other scenes, and it's like, you know, frame rate and everything's like that is high and good, and just kind of strange that that opening sequence seemed to really cause those sort of problems. And I don't know, it's just a little bit bizarre, quite honestly. So with that, let's shift on from the technical details. Most of the combat and the action you're going to see is in the quality DLSS mode, and everything ultra as kind of expected when you're playing with this high-end rig configuration, obviously. So what is The Last of Us Part 1? So like I had mentioned at the beginning, this is a remake of the 2013 game. It is, you know, really revamped, cleaned, quality improved, texture upgraded. It has a lot of the assets and the technology that The Last of Us Part 2 had applied to this game. Now, there are some elements that do feel like they are from like 2013. Some of the puzzle segments, some of the ways the characters kind of move and stuff like that. And some of like, I think like a little bit of the I guess you would say performances, like the movement of character faces and stuff. Anyways, yeah, like the texturing is greatly improved. The characters look much more realistic. There's huge technical improvements across the game. Really, it is a very well done remake of something where you're kind of like, did this need a remake? And it's like, wow, no, they actually really, you know, kind of made it feel like Part 2. So I'm kind of really excited to see Part 2 eventually come to the PC platform. I think that's going to be excellent. When that does arrive, I'm hoping that port is handled a little smoother at launch, for sure. So, yeah, there's that. There's like I said, some of the puzzle stuff. Like doing this stuff is kind of like a little. There's a couple, you know, kind of segments where you're like, this could have been maybe revamped or touched up a little bit. Like it feels really aged. But you know, it's an intact experience that if you played it in the past, you're going to, you know, you're going to remember it and you're going to be like, oh, this is exactly it, but it just looks like a brand new game, which is like still pretty cutting edge. It's quite amazing. Like the story, the narrative, the characters, the intensity, the combat, the eerie feelings, the atmosphere. It's a good lengthy story too. It's quite lengthy. You get not only the main game, but there's also the expansion sort of like insert that was a DLC but now is just part of it experience there that I don't. It's called Left Behind, and it follows Ellie. It follows Ellie and her perspective in a different part of the apocalypse. I'm trying not to, like, you know, spoil things, is really what I'm trying to get across, which is why I'm sort of like trying to dance around certain elements of it. But that's included. So you get to follow the story of a really distant, aggressive, monstrous, shaped by the craziness of the, you know, the scenario of this basically, you know, fungus monster apocalypse, and he's trying to, you know, he basically reconnects with humanity a little bit again with Ellie, who he has been charged with moving across portions of the US, and you get to visit some really beautiful locations and meet some crazy characters, and there's really, really deep, traumatic, emotional, hardcore segments. It's linear in design, but it offers segments of like stealth or direct combat or, you know, differing things like that depending on the setups that are at play. And there's always some kind of, you know, sort of twist or turn to this particular setup. I will mention, in case it's needed to be mentioned, that there isn't the multiplayer in this. They removed that ages ago, so it's not part of this, you know, version of the game. In case you were wondering, it's not there. But yeah, it is a very, very well done game. It's a very well done story with incredible characters, incredible moments. It's, you know, it can be heart-wrenching at times, and it really is just sort of a tale of trauma. Like it almost, you know, like you're really into it, but if you do take a step back, it does get a little bit like almost over the top in terms of like some of the crazy specific emotional focused moments that happen throughout it. But it does come together as a very well written, traumatic look at these individuals that are trying to make it in a world where everything has long since fallen apart. You know, there is an essence of like sort of hope, I guess you would say. But yeah, you're just kind of in here to do your job, and it just so happens that there is like a growth of emotional connection throughout it for this aged individual that really, you know, kind of didn't really have anything left that he was really going towards, and I think that's really interesting. It's also neat that the combat, as I'm sure you've been seeing, is really, it has like this sort of wonky realism to it. You're not some like really accurate dead shooter. Like, you're still, you're deadly. You are aggressive. You cause crazy amounts of obscene violence and damage towards others. But it's got like this sort of like wavering sort of combat and shooting to it. Like, you can use the environment to your advantage and, everything like that, and the characters are really reactive, and the players say sort of almost realistic things towards you as you're killing them, and that, and you feel maybe a little bit worse about what you're doing. I don't know. They did also add some elements that do feel like a little gameplay patty, where you're like, patty as in padding, where you're like sort of customizing a gun on a table and stuff, which takes a bit, and you know what I mean? But the focus was adding these little bits of extra realism that help make it feel more alive, more of a true, actual story that you are experiencing with these characters. And, it's a great, great game. It's so well done. It's so well designed. It offers, like I said, a very large story that you can just sink your teeth into and have a great time with, that you can spend well over 10 hours kind of playing and experiencing, and you really do care about these characters and the journey they go on. You really do feel connected to them, and then when it's all over, you're kind of like, wow, okay. And then you'll, on the PC side of things, obviously be waiting for that sequel down the road as well. But it is an emotional story. It is one that takes you to many places. It has moments of calm, it has moments of claustrophobia, terror, darkness, and a generally spooky atmosphere. It makes you sort of wonder how these characters are going to be able to handle certain scenarios. Are they going to make it out of this? And it never feels quite safe. If you are coming from the show, which was really, really quite great, obviously this is a remake of that, the show in a game format. I'm just kidding, but you're going to feel basically a translation that's very, very close from that show to this game. So it's good timing, but at the same time, really not perfect execution, which is such a shame, because like I said, this is like one of the biggest games of all time, and they put the time into this remake. Like, I played it on the PS5 the whole way through, streaming it. It was really good and great, and even though it's a remake of something from the past, I was like, wow, this feels refreshing. It feels new. And I watched the show, and I was like, I just experienced this in the game not too long ago, and now I'm back playing the game again, which is quite a loop. Will I ever escape The Last of Us? I feel like they don't want us to, almost. Anyways, so to summarize here, I'm sure they will improve and fix this experience. I'm quite confident they will. To me, it's more of like polishing is the biggest problem, or just not making sure that the execution was perfectly well done, which is so weird and such a shame, because like I said, this is like a crown jewel of the PlayStation library, and it's something that I would think would be an easy knock out of the park simply just by releasing it on PC kind of game. And then you have, whatever problems I've had, and then whatever problems I'm assuming others are going to be, having experienced. And it's just like, what are you doing? You've got the amazing story, you've got the amazing gameplay, you've got the well-designed thing, you offer all of these customization elements. It's just like, how do you not knock this out of the park? Or how do you not wait a bit to make sure that you are knocking it out of the park? And it just kind of feels like, they're not prioritizing the PC platform or community to the degree that they should be, really. You kind of look at it and you're like, this is such an easy win for PlayStation on PC. And, there's been a number of really, really good ports, and it's just like, what happened? Like, why? Why is this, why is this going on here? Because, like, I'm looking at the footage here, doing, the talk over on it. I'm like, wow, this looks really, really visually good. I'm like blown away by the aesthetic of it, the design of the gameplay, everything like that is so well done. But it's just like, these PC type issues, and I'm like, why Why did they not perfectly execute this? That's a bit disappointing, but I hope this helped showcase The Last of Us Part 1, a great remake.